Amazing how powerful the text is in the English, how it's so even more powerful in the Hebrew, of course, if you understand the Hebrew. And that you began the text this morning with the words, of course, that I'm going to speak of this morning, that Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants. Could no longer control himself is an incredibly powerful statement. It's reminiscent, of course, of the words that we hear so often in our everyday interactions. It's probably one of the most infuriating phrases that you can ever hear, and that is, calm down. It's one of those things that no matter how it's said, it has always the opposite effect. When people say, calm down, it only serves to energize us further. I say this morning because of the horrible explosion that occurred in Nashville, Tennessee just yesterday, that we live in angry times. People in our country are furious, and it is resulting in explosive behavior. Explosive behavior is literally that which is out of control. And I have to tell you that I have one theory about the anger that exists in our country, it exists in our lives, it exists in our personal interactions, whether we express them or not. Anger is the active form of what fear is on the inside. I have said this before. I truly believe it, that anger is, as Henderson pointed out, the bit of the iceberg that is above the water. There is so much beneath the surface. Anger energizes. Fear paralyzes. I mean that sincerely, and that is, if we had no mechanism for acting on our fear, then we would be paralyzed. And so it often comes out in the form of anger. If you ask yourself the question 9 times out of 10, the answer will reveal itself. The question is, instead of what are you angry about, ask yourself the question, what are you afraid of? 9 times out of 10, you will be able to dig deep into that hard question of, what am I afraid of, not what am I angry at? And I'm sure that you can come up with any series of answers to the question that will begin to unpack for you what are the real emotions behind that circumstance. When I'm angry, can I ask myself the question, am I afraid they're going to stop loving me? Am I afraid that someone's going to hurt me? Am I afraid that I'm going to lose something important to me? Am I afraid of being rejected? And am I afraid that it's too late to reconcile? For Joseph, he explodes. It's in that moment, V'lo yachol Yosef lihitakpek l'chol hanitzavim alav. Joseph is no longer able to hold it in, and he explodes. We know of the experience that he had with his brothers, being sold into slavery, being sold into the dungeons eventually of Egypt. We can imagine what Joseph must have felt like when he saw his brothers for the first time and was unable to be recognized. He knew who they were right away, but they had no idea who he was. Yes, he had been cleaned up and raised up to a powerful position in Egypt, and so maybe the adornments that he had made him unrecognizable. But the truth is, Joseph was angry. And he was angry for good reason. His brothers had sold him out. And so the emotions that he must have felt in this moment are probably long. Maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he was distrustful. Maybe he was frustrated. Maybe he was annoyed or disappointed or anxious or disrespected. Maybe he actually felt helpless. Maybe he had moments of regret. Maybe he was worried, what would they think when they knew it was him? Maybe he was scared. Maybe he was jealous of the relationships that they had with each other that he was left out of. Maybe he felt shame for never having reached out to his father in all those years. Maybe he felt lonely. Maybe he felt grief over the years lost of relationship between he and his brothers. And so it says, Lo yachol Yosef lihitapek. Joseph was unable to unpack all of those feelings, to put each in its proper compartment so that he could deal with each one as it came. And so the text teaches, V'lo yachol Yosef litapek. Joseph couldn't hold it together any longer. We know that feeling, that explosive moment where it just comes pouring out. Wouldn't it be great if we could easily in our lives, as Rabbi Ben Zoma teaches us, Ezehu Gibor HaKovesh et Yitzro. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could always control our emotions? We could control our inclinations. Wouldn't it be great? It'd be more powerful than being able to overcome a city if we could do it. If we could hold our feelings in check. But that's not how it works. Not for us, not for anyone. And so when Rashi points out, V'lo yachol Yosef litapek l'chol hanitzavim, he couldn't withhold it anymore, says Rashi, she'achiv mitbayishan, because he didn't want to put his brothers to shame, he says. So instead of us acquiring our feelings and our emotions the way we want to, the way we think we could, sometimes we put it on others, says Rashi. Instead of thinking about the power of our own emotions, we say, it's because of you. Because of your embarrassment and your shame that I act this way. It has nothing to do with me. The Sforno says it's something else. Sometimes we put off our emotions. Instead of dealing with them in the moment where they ought to be dealt with most powerfully and most effectively, Sforno says, you know what, we put things off all the time. L'hitapek l'chol hanitzavim l'hitapek. Livarer oskei kol hanitzavim alav. The Sforno says that he was pushing everything aside so that he could deal with the day-to-day runnings of a country. Instead of dealing with his own personal issues and matters, he put it off so that he could deal with what was going on in his work. Instead of acknowledging the long list of concerns and feelings and complicated ideas running through his head, he just kept pushing them aside. And so Sforno teaches us so simply, if we keep burying our emotions, they won't go away. Sforno says they will explode. He says it's going to come out somewhere. And if you want to explore your real feelings, your real emotions, you can't do it in public. You can't allow yourself to just explode in public. You have to create for yourself a private moment of reflection so that you can come to understand what you're really feeling. But then again, as I've gone through so many times in the last few weeks to understand the lessons of our rabbis, I go to the Yismach Moshe, who offers us really the greatest tool that we could ever have in our toolbox. And he recalls for us the moment of Jacob about to meet up with his brother Esau. He says this is exactly what it must have felt like for Joseph as he met up with his brothers. Jacob was to Esau as Joseph was to his brothers. Many a restless night as this drama unfolded, he picks up on the word V'lo haya yachol. Joseph couldn't do it any longer. V'lo nish'ar ish. Joseph does something very powerful. He sends everybody out. Picking up the Lo Nishar Ish Yismach Moshe says, Joseph had a moment by himself. V'nei yadua de Gavriel haya ragil etzlo. Just like Jacob had his angel that allowed him the opportunity to feel protected by some greater force, so too did Joseph. So too did Joseph have the opportunity to be by himself and to begin to sort out those emotions that were overwhelming him. Look, if we don't afford ourselves the moment of reflection, the moment of private meditation, if we don't afford ourselves the Shabbos in our emotional turmoil, then we will continue to be an explosive society. And the damage that we will do to the people around us will be irreparable. Says the Yismach Moshe, we need to take a moment to pause, to ask ourselves the important question, what am I really feeling? It can't be that I'm angry all the time. It must be a well of conflicting emotions that make me so upset. 9 times out of 10, I'll ask the question of myself when I feel angry. Not what am I angry at, but what am I afraid of? Am I embarrassed or am I feeling distrusted? Am I frustrated or annoyed, disappointed or nervous? Am I anxious or feel disrespected? Do I feel helpless or do I feel regret? Am I worried? Am I scared? Am I jealous or am I embarrassed? Do I feel alone in this world or am I just grieving so much that we have lost? If we cannot find a way to allow those feelings to be validated, then the expression will always be anger. Joseph and his brothers offer us a moment of extraordinary love that runs deep. It's in their blood, one for the other. And it allows them the opportunity to recognize that before any more damage is done, before Joseph hurts his brothers anymore, before his brothers have the opportunity to hurt him once again, they're able to come together. In a moment with Joseph and Benjamin, they hug each other and they embrace. Joseph's tears of anger at the beginning turn into tears of love at the end. If we afford ourselves that same luxury of being embraced by those whom we love and who love us, then we can truly shed tears that are meaningful connective moments. Ezehu Gibor, who is powerful? I decide to answer it differently than Benzoma. He who allows his emotions to sort themselves out and feel truly connected with those around him. Shabbat Shalom. So we now continue with, towards the end of our service. We're going to continue on page 177 as we